So today what we're going to do is we're going to talk about evaluating algebraic expressions by substitution. Now, first of all, let's just remind ourselves what these things mean. Algebraic means that you have a variable or a letter in it. An expression means it does not have an equal symbol, right? So that means you can't solve it. But we haven't run across this word evaluating yet, so we're going to talk a little bit about it. Okay? So, to evaluate means to do the math. Okay? Often use the word simplify. Now the difference though is when you're evaluating, you're going to be given the numbers to use in place of the variables. Okay, so give you about a minute to write that down. Yep.
Please.
Pardon me? Yeah, I'm going to give you a minute to write it down. Now, so you're going to be given some numbers, and you're going to put those numbers in place of the variables. And so that's what it means to evaluate. Evaluate means assign a value to. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to evaluate using substitutions. Let me just go to a fresh page so we can do it. So we're going to evaluate using substitution. Substitution, and it seems like a lot of T's. Okay, substitution. Now you've heard the word substitute before. Substitute simply means to put something in place of something else. Okay, so we're going to substitute.
Teacher.
Pardon me? Yeah, exactly.
Like a substitute teacher.
Exactly, like a substitute teacher. Exactly. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at the process for doing that. Now you've got to be careful because you can't just start plugging things in and hope that it works out. Because remember, we have exponents, we have signs, we have all kinds of things going on. So you really have to be careful when you're doing the substitution. It's an easy process, but unless you do it correctly and organize your work, then you can't come out with the right answer. So the first step is to simply replace the variables. Now there may only be one variable or variables, with the given values. Now we also have to be very careful that not only are we putting the right number in the right spot, but we want to preserve the operations. In other words, we need multiplications to still mean multiplication. We need combining to mean combining. And the magic formula for that is to use brackets. Now, there will be times when the brackets are optional. You don't have to put them. But let me tell you that you can never put too many, but you can certainly put too few. Okay? Say, for example, we had the algebraic expression 4x, and I told you that x equals 2. If I just put 2 in place of that x, I turn it into 42. But that's not what's indicated here. What operation does 4x literally mean to do?
Multiplication.
There you go. So you can't just replace the letter with the number. You have to replace the letter with the number in a bracket because you still need it to say multiplication. Right? So you see what I'm talking about here with the brackets? Now, there are times when it wouldn't make a difference. You wouldn't need a bracket. So here, let's say x is 2. In this case, since that x is all by itself, there's nothing multiplied, there's no exponent, there's no sign, there's nothing else, then I could just replace it with the number without using a bracket. and it still means the same operation. Okay? So, but the only time you're not allowed, you don't have to use the brackets, is if the x or the y or the a or whatever letter you have, whatever variable you have, is completely by itself. But even here, if you know that's going to be an issue for you, just go ahead and put in the bracket. But when you do the bracket, there's nothing inside I can do. There's no exponent. There's no coefficient. So that means there's no reason for the bracket to be there. Okay? Now be careful that if you do use the bracket here, that you don't automatically think that means multiply by something, because it doesn't, right? It only means multiply if they're side by side, like up here. Notice there's nothing between the 4 and the 2, but here, since there's a plus between them, that bracket does not mean to multiply. So really have to watch your operation symbols. Okay, second step. Simplify using the order of operations. And remember that the first step in order of operations is to look for brackets. And we know they're going to be there most of the time because we put them there. Now, when you start putting in brackets, one thing about the New Zealand system that makes me crazy is that you only use one shape of brackets, which kind of makes me crazy, but oh well, tough. If you already have a bracket and you put another bracket inside of it, now we have two brackets. We have brackets inside of brackets. Then you have to take care of this inside bracket first. Then you do the outside bracket when you're ready for it. Okay? So anytime you have brackets that are stacked together, then you need to always make sure you go to the innermost brackets first. Okay? Or what you can do is, if you put a bracket inside of another bracket, you can change the shape of the bracket to make sure that you know that there's another bracket inside. It doesn't change the meaning if you change the shape. It just gives you different shapes so you can see which ones you need to do first. You always do these plain little ones inside first. Okay? So either way you want to do it, do what makes you feel most comfortable and how it organizes your work. I'll show you both ways as we go through. Okay? If you have a value for every single variable, after you simplify using the order of operations, then you're going to end up with just a single number. It'll always come out to be just a number. Now, if they don't tell you a value for every variable, then you'll be able to eliminate some of them, but not all. That's unusual, but that could happen. Okay? So that's all there is to it. Replace the variables with the given values, making sure that you're using brackets, and then simplify using the order of operations, and be careful with the brackets. If you put in more brackets, be careful to know which one you need to do first. Okay. So we're going to pop over to the book and do a few examples of these, and then I'm going to give you an assignment. So let's go to the book.
Mr. Self?
Yes.
Do we do any Kahoots today or no?
No Kahoots today, just math work.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Here we go. So to evaluate an algebraic expression, we simply substitute the given values for the variables and then calculate the result. Right? So let's just pop to the questions in 7F.1. Say, for example, we'll start off easy. Let's see. Look at C. So we have 2x plus 1. That's our algebraic expression. We know it's an algebraic expression because it has letters in it, right? And they want you to evaluate it when x is equal to 4. Just going to pop to some notebook paper to make it easier to see. So that means that everywhere there's an x, I'm going to put in a 4. But I never replace a letter with a number without putting it in a bracket. So that's going to be 2 bracket 4 plus 1. And then I'm just going to simplify it using the order of operations. The order of operations says I need to deal with this bracket first, so I'm just going to bring the 1 down. You don't have to, but I'm going to do it in a series of steps so we can keep it organized and focused. But if you do too little and drop and forget some things, then you could be in trouble. Now go back to the bracket. There's only a 4 inside, so there's nothing I can do inside. There's no exponent. Is there a coefficient on the 4? On the bracket, I'm sorry?
No.
No. Coefficient just means multiplier. So yes, there is, right? That 2 is the coefficient or multiplier, isn't it? There's no variable, but there's a coefficient. So 2 times 4 makes what?
8.
8. And then it's just a matter of finishing it off. 8 plus 1 makes 9. So for this particular algebraic expression, when x equals 4, the expression equals 9. Okay? So you're just plugging in the values and then doing the math. Okay. Let's look at another. Here we go. Here's an example when they have more than one, where you're going to end up with more than one bracket. But 5 times j minus 2 when j equals 7. Again, just move to notebook paper to make it easier to see. So all I'm going to do is everywhere there's a j, I'm going to put in a 7. Now, but this time, I don't have to use brackets when I do that, because do you notice that the j is all by itself inside there? There's no coefficient, there's no sign, there's no exponent. That's the only time when you don't have to put in a bracket. Okay? And now I'll just do the math. And so we have brackets. The whole thing is part of a bracket. So remember the steps. Inside first. So inside I have 7 minus 2. 7 minus 2 is going to give me what?
5.
5. Good. Then I look for an exponent on the bracket. Is there an exponent on the bracket? Somebody want to tell me no? Okay.
No.
No. And then last, I look for this coefficient or multiplier. Remember, this is a coefficient too. Coefficient just means multiplier. It means the number to multiply in front of anything. It doesn't have anything to do with just the algebraic expressions. Coefficient always means multiplier. Okay? So we're going to take that 5 times the 5 that we have inside, which of course is going to give us 25 as our answer. Okay? Again, we didn't need the bracket to put the 7 in place of the j because the j was completely by itself. Didn't have a sign or an exponent or anything else. Okay. Let's see. All right. I'm going to give you number 2 to work on your own. Now let's see what happens when you have more than one variable. Doesn't change the process any. You just have to be more careful and do a little more work. So let's look at k. So we have 3 times 2x minus 5y. And we want to solve that when x equals 3 and y equals 4. So if you look in the directions, they want you to use x equals 3 and y equals 4 for every single one of these. Okay? So you're going to do it over and over with the same values. All right. Let's take a look at this one. So I have an x value and a y value. And this time, my x is not completely by itself. It's got that 2 there with it. So that means that I have to use brackets. And in place of the x, I'm going to put the 3. Same thing with the y. Since it's not completely by itself, I have to use the brackets and then close the other brackets. Now you can make these outside ones bigger or darker, or you could change the shape of them. Just make sure you know that you have to deal with those ones on the inside first before you get to these guys, okay? So we're going to do the inside first. There's a lot going on, so I'm just going to bring down everything I'm not going to use. First, 2 times 3 is going to make 6. Negative 5 times positive 4 is going to make negative 20. Right? Because remember that minus is the sign of our multiplier there. And then, finally, we can do the inside. 6 minus 20. The signs are different, so I'll keep the sign of the larger and then subtract the numbers. So that gives me a completed inside of negative 14. Right? Multiply. After I multiplied with the brackets, I combined the two numbers that were inside, and that simplified out to give me 14. Is there an exponent on the bracket?
No.
No, good. Is there a coefficient or a multiplier?
Yeah.
Yes. I need to multiply the inside by 3. So it's a positive times a negative, which is going to make my whole answer a negative. And 3 times 14 is going to be 42. So my completed answer is negative 42. So you will have some signs you're going to be working with here. And remember the sign rules when you multiply. If the signs are the same, the answer is always a positive. If the signs are different, the answer is always a negative. So you can go back to those notes and look for those. All right. So let's go back to the book. Here, they're going to give you where you're writing the expression, and then you're going to have to evaluate it for different values. Okay. Look at, let's see. Here they have 3 values. Not going to change the process any, but I like this one. Look at 6. The reason I want to choose 6 is because of this B thing here. So let's find one that make sure we have a B in it. Oh, this is a really good one. Look at K. So we have the expression ABC. We want to do it when A is 2, B equals 0, and C equals 3. And some of you already know the answer, but that's all right. So everywhere there's an A, I'm going to put a 2. And since it's not by itself, I have to put in a bracket to keep the multiplication. Everywhere there's a B, I'm going to put in a 0. And everywhere there's a C, I'm going to put in a 3. And then I just need to all those brackets stacked together mean to multiply. So 2 times 0 is 0, and 0 times 3 just makes the whole thing turn into a 0. Anytime it's all multiplication and one of your factors is a 0, you're always going to get an answer of 0. So watch out for that. Even though the number is 0, B is 0, you have to put it in. Don't just think, B is nothing, so I'll leave it off. You have to put it in so that you can do the math with it. Okay? Be really careful. Don't lose anything that you need. Okay? All right. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give you this assignment, and we're going to come back and we're going to work with more signs later. But for today, we're going to stop here where all of the things that we're substituting are positives. That doesn't mean you're going to end up with all positive answers. It just means the things you're plugging in are all going to be positive. So on page 154, you're going to do exercise 7F1. Now, there are a lot of them. So on these, you can do the second column if there's more than one column. Okay, let's see what happens when we go down. I want you to do all the ones that are word problems, though, like that. Here, do the second columns. So like here on 3, just do the one that starts with B and the one that starts with D. If you get chance, if you get time, do them all. And then on 5, do the second column and then the second column. So B and D. Here we go. If you have 4, do the second one and the fourth one. So those 2. Right? And that should give you plenty of practice. Okay?